Hello, and welcome to We Read Allegedly, where we are allegedly reading books. I actually read the book this time.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. I am Squid. I'm always here, joined by someone else who's always here, Celeste.
Hello. I don't think... Have I ever missed an episode?
I don't think either of us have ever missed an episode, have we?
There's been at least one where you weren't there. I don't remember why.
Maybe John dies at the end because I didn't finish it.
No, you
Was
were
I
there
in that episode?
You were there for
Okay.
that one. Listeners, if you know which episode it was...
Let us know.
Because it was like... It was shortly after the first time John missed, and you were like, hey guys, I am not going to be in town, or I'm not going to be able to be there. I don't know.
Huh.
There was a thing. It was early on, though.
I don't know. I don't think you've missed.
No. I have not. Because...
Unless I'm absolutely crazy. Doesn't look like it.
I don't know. We'll have to
Anyway,
look into that later.
all of that aside, welcome. It is my month to pick the book, so I picked a book I had never read before, which is my MO of this year. So we will be talking about Tiny Beautiful Things, Advice on Love and Life from Dear Sugar by Cheryl Strayed. But first, we're not going to talk about what we're allegedly reading. We're going to play a game.
Woohoo!
Celeste, what are we playing today?
We are playing another iteration of 1-star reviews, where we try to guess a book that we have covered that have, and by their 1-star reviews. And this is something I found off the TikToks. A library was doing it. We looked it up. We linked them the last time we did it. We're not going to do it again. Just go back to the last episode we did that at. I don't remember which one it was. Just go listen to all of them.
Yeah, start from episode 1.
And keep going. We actually have quite a few people, based on our statistics, that go and listen to our dust jackets.
Oh, wow, cool.
So that's...
I'm glad you guys like those.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting.
Huh.
So anyway, we're going to be doing... what the name of this game, like we said, is 1-star reviews. I'm going to be reading off portions of 1-star reviews, and Squid is going to try to guess the book.
And I'm going to do it without looking at our podcast list. So I'm just going to have to remember books we've read.
Yes. And so I have 7. If you have not guessed it by the 7th one, I will tell you.
Okay. Perfect.
So I'm not going to make you just like... there's a time limit on this.
Good. Just gonna keep going until
whole podcast is not going to be you trying to figure this out.
Good.
Okay, so the first one I have. This is even given that the characters themselves are uninteresting. Worse, they are capital I, interesting, which makes them all the more boring. Because why explore a character when you can just give them histories and talents that are designed to do the work for you? Nothing is more frustrating than the characters acting illogically. They fail to do the obvious thing because they have done anything a normal person might have done, and the mystery would not have played out.
Oh, mystery not playing out. It throws that for a loop. Because characters being uninteresting made me think Musashi.
No, it hasn't been long enough since we did Musashi. I was like, let's not beat up on that one.
This is too ripe.
Soon.
This is too ripe. All right.
Too soon.
All right. Give me number 2.
Worst of it is, the author is clueless about motives and goals of real people, committing even more annoying horror movie tropes there is. Every. I misread. That is, they all act in the most illogical way ever, and when they're not acting illogically, they're acting like they never left high school. Come to think of it, if this whole thing took place in a high school dormitory with everyone's physical ages brought down, it would make more sense.
Wow. Given the... Only one came to mind after this, too. which is 14.
That is correct.
Everyone in that book makes some choices.
That makes
And
some
instead
choices.
of an apartment complex, if it was taking place in a college dormitory, that would make, or a high school dormitory even, yeah, that checks out. A bunch of kids
like a
in that
private
book.
school. A private,
Yep,
yeah, totally.
it's a boarding school full of
I'm gonna
dummies.
keep reading
Yeah,
these
keep
because
going.
they're entertaining. But it is 14 by Peter Clines, and you can listen to
Sorry,
our
John.
podcast about that. Sorry, John, we love you, but these are
to
hysterical.
to hear the rest of my review from Goodreads, you can go listen to our podcast.
Yeah, exactly. The next one is Peter Clines 14, which I was gonna edit. Only makes me want to read House of Leaves again. And I
I'm
grabbed
telling you,
that
John.
because that's something you said in the episode. And it wasn't your account that posted that.
I'm telling. I have shadow accounts just for 14. It's just me on 17 different Goodreads accounts being like, "Da, da, da, da."
All of these are Squid. That's how she guessed it so quickly. I received this book for free courtesy of Permuted Press and NetGalley in exchange for an honest review. I'm a hypocrite. I recently pledged to persevere through any book no matter how much I wanted to put it down. This book made me break that promise.
Ooh. Also me.
Oh no. I deeply, deeply dislike this book. I originally rated it as a 2 and then dropped it to a 1 after I thought some more of how intensely I disliked it. And then
Good.
last but not least, from a craft perspective, it is sloppily written. Not the worst I've read, but sloppy. It has weird perspective shifts for the sake of easy storytelling, which could have been fixed with some careful restructuring. The characters are very one-dimensional and genuinely don't care about any of them because none of them ever seemed real. They seemed like puppets, and those mile-high red letter revelations. Sigh.
Yeah, that tracks. All those track. Don't dig too deeply into those Goodreads accounts. I've only created so many lies on each of them.
So sorry to beat up on your book, John. Once again,
Go read
it's
House of
fine.
Leaves.
It also has a lot of 5-star reads, so it's not that it's not a book for everyone. It's just it had a lot of 1-star reviews because a lot of people went, we weren't a fan of this.
Yep. That's okay. I'm sure a lot of having read reviews of a lot of the books I pick. How We Are Hungry specifically, I know has a lot of 1-star just because people either love Dave Edgars or they hate Dave Edgars.
I've been
There ain't
purposely
no in
avoiding
between.
doing that one for 1-star reviews because I'm like, I hated that so much that I feel like that it would be an easy guess.
For you.
I
Probably. I feel like it'd be hard. Just anthologies, I feel like, are harder.
because
To,
there's so many
like-
different things they could talk about.
Yeah, so they could be like this one story, or they could be like as an anthology, and you'd be like, what anthologies have we done? But yeah, people tend to love or hate him, and not a lot of in between from what I've seen.
He is one of those things.
Yep.
Okay, well, let's get into talking about today's book.
Oh, I closed my tab. I opened it for a reason and then completely forgot why I opened it. Oops.
Happens.
All right, today we're reading Tiny Beautiful Things, as I said in the intro. Tiny Beautiful Things is a best-selling book from the author of Wild and collects the best of the Rumpus's Dear Sugar advice columns, plus never-before-published pieces. Rich with humor, insight, compassion, and absolute honesty, this book is a balm for everything life throws our way. So this book is a nonfiction book and is just a collection of short essays, letters from kind of like a, is it Dear Amy, Dear Sugar, Dear, what are the other ones? Why can't I not think of the name? Like the pot, like the big one.
The big one. Hang on, let me see if I can Google this. We're gonna get googly with it.
Yeah.
Dear Abby
Dear Abby, thank you.
is the most
The
notable one.
Amy is why that was the name in my head. I was like, who is this person? It's like a Dear Amy column. People write into this publication and she answers their letters. So it lists the question and then her reply.
Which is
What?
interesting.
Yes. I listened to the audiobook for this too.
I did too.
I imagine you probably did as well. But
I am at a point in my life currently where I have been reading the same Kindle book for a month. And
is it Till We Have Faces? Because I'm also still reading that.
no, I ditched that one.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
I said
allegedly
no.
still reading it.
As soon as the challenge that I was reading it for, so we could do a buddy read with it, ended, I was like, nope, not finishing it.
Shut that back down. Yep.
It's like, it is not a thing for me. No, it's a book that recently came out. And I was like, I'm gonna read this, and then I've had like no time to read other than audiobooks. So like I'm reading little bits at night, but then I fall asleep with my book. So
Yeah.
everything is audiobook right now because I can do that while I work and clean and drive and all the things.
That's why I have so much harder time with my Kindle too, just in general. Like I could pick up a
Well,
physical book, but for some reason picking up the device, I'm like, I've read 3 pages. That's good.
some people are like that. And like I have a physical book that I've been purposefully reading on lunch all week, and I'm only on chapter 2.
Yeah.
It took me the entire week on lunch to get to chapter 2. So it's just we're busy right now, and so my brain can't handle what it normally does. And that's okay.
Yes.
I
Very
understand
much.
what's happening. And I go, okay, well, this is just gonna take me a while. It's fine.
Okay.
So but I really enjoyed. Did you have the audiobook that was narrated by the author?
Yes. Yes, I did.
So I assume that there's another one out there somewhere.
Maybe. Is there?
I have no idea. I just because a lot of times they'll do that as a special like
Yeah.
thing, and then sometimes it's not.
Tiny Beautiful Things audiobook. I think she does all of them.
Oh, okay.
I think it's just the one, yeah. Oh my goodness. Anyway. What did you think of this, Celeste?
I think she had a lot of interesting thoughts on life, marriage, religion.
She did.
Theologically, based on her thoughts, she and I do not agree on a lot. But I enjoy stuff like this.
Yeah.
That's this format, this type of thing. There was a fiction book that I listened to that was nothing but text messages
Oh,
back and
okay.
forth to each other, and it was a really interesting way to tell the story. And so this kind of gave me that vibe, I guess. Like
Yeah.
it's like reading a book of letters.
Very much so.
So
I agree with that.
she and I, like I said, she and I disagree on some things. I would not advise anybody take marriage advice from this woman or relationship
No.
advice, but
Maybe like
that's
2 or
just
3
me.
sentences of relationship advice from all of them, maybe. Every so often she had one sentence where it'd be like, do just that one and ignore the rest of
Just
those.
that one.
Just that one sentence, thanks. But not
It was
that one
interesting.
afterwards.
So
Not that one before. Yeah, the relationship one's. Go ahead.
It's one of those things that it's a good look into what someone who is not a Christian has as a worldview.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I understand people who are non-believers a little bit better because I listened to the book. And I respect her, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
While still disagreeing with her.
Yeah. And I do think she did
I'm
have
like
some great advice in here. Again, you have to be able to parse through it.
She has had a crazy life.
Yes, she has. Yes, she has. But definitely like with the relationship ones, this is a conversation like I feel like I've had a lot recently about like how people view relationships and stuff. And it's
Mhm.
very much that like if you don't feel it, why are you doing it? Where you're like, well, sometimes you're not going to feel it and you
Yeah.
should do it anyway. Heaven
It was
forbid we all
the
guide everything by feelings.
it was the wanting to leave is a reason enough that I really had issue with, because the
Yeah,
rest of it I was like, "Okay, cool. This is not advice I would give, but from a worldly perspective, I can see how you would get there."
right.
The wanting to leave is reason enough. No. No, that in my opinion, that is not reason enough to leave a relationship, because some days you want to just be by yourself.
Yeah.
And
Some
and
days you may
some
be like,
days
I'm done with this.
I can honestly say I have never gotten to that point with my relationship with my husband, but I have gotten to the point where I'm like, I need to be around no people. And if I was a different person and we had a different relationship, I could see that translating to I don't want to be around you ever. Like
Right. Like I'm just
mistaking
tired
that.
of tired of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. And so it's a like I can see how people would get to that, and they might be giving up something that's wonderful, that deserves to be worked on, deserves to be pushed through, because you made a commitment.
Right.
And so I just yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's
That was
also
what
like
stuck
so
out the
hard.
most.
I feel like it's super hard to explain that mentality too, because it's
Mhm.
also not being like, and ignore red flags. Just make it
No,
work.
no.
Like, that's not the
No.
advice. It's
No,
like,
no,
yeah,
that is not the
find
advice.
the green flags and then make that work because it's gonna look like other flags later,
Yeah,
or you're gonna want to interpret it that way.
right. Well, and then it's the I am if you make a commitment to someone and you go, I'm going to love you through the hard times, and then the hard times hit and you're like, I don't feel this anymore, and then you
Yeah.
leave, then you were lying. So it might not be that you really wanted to leave the relationship. It might be that you were having too much mental load and you needed to go, "Hey, I'm having an issue. Can you help me?"
Right.
So it's just again, it's one of those weird things. It's hard to explain because you're like, you don't want to tell people put yourself in danger. Like you don't want
Right.
them to take it that way, because there are legitimate reasons to leave relationships. But
Right.
it's also
But just
just
the
such a
feeling of
weird
like, this isn't satisfying me anymore, so it's time to go. This is not fulfilling
yeah,
for
like
me, so I'm gonna go be fulfilled elsewhere. Because the focus should
yeah,
not be yourself anymore.
right. I don't know. And
And as
the whole time I
someone that
was
will
reading
be
it,
1 month married when this debuts, I am an expert on
mm,
love.
mhm. I was actually the whole time I was going, Lord, thank you that Squid is mature enough to know that this is not actual advice she should take.
Gosh,
Because
no, it's not.
because the reading of this was well before your wedding. I
Yes, it
was like,
was.
oh no.
I actually read this one a long time ago because I got like a cut the line copy for
Oh.
a loan. So it was a long time ago that I actually read this.
So
I was like, no, months
did you read the
away.
anniversary edition?
I don't know. Maybe.
There the version that I listened to was an anniversary edition, and so there was updated.
Maybe it was still a newer one. When did
Mm,
the anniversary edition come out?
let me look. I'm not for certain.
I just look at my Libby and see. Yes, with new material.
Oh, there you go.
Now a Hulu original series.
Really?
Yeah. I haven't watched it,
That's
but
fascinating. I don't know how you would make that into
yeah, I
a
don't know. I
series.
think it might be more like about her.
Oh, now that would be interesting. I legitimately her her relationship with her dad was fascinating to me. Just the way that she handled that.
That was
And like
X.
the the huh?
With X, is that the or with a
I
different
don't
one?
remember what chapter it was. She
Doesn't
mentioned
she
it
refer to
several
him
times
as
throughout
X?
different, possibly.
Or is that
Let
someone her
me
mother
pull up the
remarried?
actual book.
Am I thinking of something else entirely?
I think you're thinking of something else entirely. But let me download this audiobook again so I can look
Oh,
at
yeah, yes, I
the
am. I
chapter
am thinking
names.
of a different book. Never mind.
I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. But she, for those who haven't read it, because this is even with what we're talking about, you can go and listen to this, and it's a good read.
Yeah,
Even if there were things I had issues with, but her relationship with her dad is interesting, and basically she had one of those messy divorces where they got divorced and mom and dad got divorced and dad was not a healthy person, and then once they were divorced, the only time he contacted the kids was on holidays, and then he complained about their mother to them until he stopped
yeah,
contacting them. And so at one point when she's older, she reaches out, um, sends an email or a letter or something, because she's an older lady, older than us. Not old, but older than us. Um, she's like in her 50s.
yeah. She's
And so
55.
yeah, when she sent him some sort of a correspondence and was like, "Hey, I would like a relationship with you, but before that is able to happen, I would need answers to these questions."
Yeah,
No response. Then years later, he calls her on the phone, and the first thing he says to her in years is, "You know Rachel Ray?" And she's like,
I
"Excuse
do
me?"
remember this.
And he's like, "Yeah, the show Rachel Ray." And so they talk 45 minutes about Rachel Ray and cooking and whatnot, and hang up. And he calls again, and she goes, "Hey, I'd really like to continue a relationship, but I really do need you to answer these questions." And that was the last time that she talked to him.
Because he said no.
So it's just her perspective of that was a fascinating well, he said a lot of other things.
He did say a lot of
But
other things we won't repeat.
it was a fascinating, we will not repeat, was fascinating look into that story, because I feel like that is a common thing. Not necessarily all of it, but there is, divorce is a common thing in our country. Um, so it was interesting to hear a someone talking about her perspectives as a child, as a teenager, and
Yeah.
then as an adult.
And sometimes divorce does happen. We get it. If you are a divorced parent, if you are a child of divorced parents, well, if you're a child, you don't really have much say. If
Hey,
you're a divorced parent, hey, don't badmouth your ex to your children. Just don't do it.
it's a really, really bad idea. I
Just don't.
Because your kids aren't at fault. They didn't make
Yeah,
these
and
decisions. You did.
they are not game pieces. They're not tokens to be won over to one side or the other. Anyway, this is us just giving advice now. We're not even talking about the book, but yeah, I think that often whenever I'm like, don't do it. If you're still married, don't bad talk or
Yeah.
like trash talk your spouse to your children. Just don't.
Don't treat your children as adults, because they are not. They don't need to
And
know
they're
the
not your
adult side
marriage
of the
counselor.
relationships. No. Although I feel like if you were to contact us, we could find some for you.
Yeah.
Find someone who could help you out.
We got you. Anyway, yes, some of her relationship advice was very questionable, but some of her like advice within relationships was not as terrible.
Right. So she there was another one where it's write like a, and I won't say the word that comes after that
I wrote
because
that
we
one
don't
down.
say that. I appreciated that one because it was very encouraging. It was,
Mhm.
this book is not to be listened to around children,
Yeah.
or anyone who can't not repeat what they hear or read, because there's adults like that.
Yes,
But
there are.
the general gist behind that chapter was such a, hey, just do what you're doing. Like, if you're going to be a writer, go write.
Go right. Yeah, there was, because that was the chapter 2. It was like, I need to do this great thing, and if I don't, then I'm up here, and then I'm over here, and I need to write the next great American novel for it to be worth it to write. And I wrote
Mm-hmm.
down the line that came before the write like a,
Yeah.
where she just says, "You are up too high and down too low. You
Yeah.
just got to middle a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
we do not need the
Like,
next great American novel. We need what you're writing. Go write."
yeah. I appreciated that line specifically because everybody has a different perspective.
Yeah, very much. I did write that one down. I was like, that's a good one. That and ask better questions,
Yes.
which she does say a few times. The number of times she calls people sweet pea does get on my nerves. But her quote was, "Ask better questions, sweet pea." Um, and I
Yeah.
think that's just good advice for everyone because it's so easy to just be like, "Why?" or, you know, "How is that going to be the case?" or whatever. But it's like, ask what you really mean and figure out what that is. Like, dig in.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go. You're not going to get anywhere by staying surface level.
Yeah. There was one that it had 3 different letters from 3 different people, but it was all the same situation. That I was like, this is some soap opera crap.
Yes. I did
That one
like
really
the few that like put either the same situation or several topics that were very similar, where they would
yeah.
just like stack a few in there.
Yeah, under all the same.
Yeah.
It took me a minute to realize what was happening. That it was all within the same chapter, time frame, what have you.
I did also write down that the chapter titled Tiny Beautiful Things was a great chapter, but I didn't write down what that chapter was about. So go read the book and find out. That's it.
If I remember right, that one. If I remember right, that one was one that was being written to someone who was highly depressed. And they were talking about, oh no, that was the one with her mother. Where she talks a lot about her mom. But the summer before her mom died, they went to an estate sale or garage sale or something and found a dress. And for some reason, she was drawn to that dress. But she wasn't planning on having kids at the moment. And she ended up, her mom was like, "You seem to like that dress." She was like, whatever. She was like, "It's only $1." She's like, "I don't have $1." So her mom bought the dress for her because she could tell it was something that she was wanting. And it was a child's dress, like for a toddler.
Right.
And then her mom passed away. And so on her daughter's first Christmas, she wore the dress that her grandmother bought her
Oh, yes.
that
That sounds like it would have
had
been my
never met
favorite.
each other. And at that time, I was like, why am
I
I
was just,
trying not to cry?
you
Squid,
just
why did you
repeating
do
that.
this to me?
Truly, you just repeating that made me want to cry. So it's like, oh yeah, I do remember that.
It was crazy because she's like, these are the tiny, beautiful things in life.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here going, that's, for me as a believer, that's God.
Yeah.
That's God going, you're going to want to see your daughter in a dress that her grandmother bought her that she never got to meet. So,
I think it's like there is, well, I have two thoughts. The first was what we said at the beginning, which I wrote down, like, you don't have to have Christian advice to have advice worth listening to.
yeah.
But it does mean don't accept it at face value and you should evaluate it first.
Oh, yeah.
But there is a lot
Even,
of really good advice in here.
to be fair, even Christian advice. You should still evaluate because you
Yes,
don't know where the
please.
person is coming from, and
And
if
we're
they
all
are
human.
someone who can trust. And we're all human. We make mistakes.
Yeah.
Um,
This book did make me cry. I did weep at one point.
I
Uh,
did my best not to cry, and I think I succeeded mostly.
yeah.
Until she got to the 10 Angry Boys.
I don't remember the 10 Angry Boys. Refresh my memory.
Okay,
Cry
so
for me,
for
because then I can tell you when I cried.
point of reference, just for those, if anyone's listening to this and who doesn't know you or I well or anything else to do with Geek Devotions or our life, Dallas and I work in youth ministry, and I have had a heart for teenagers since I was a teenager, which was interesting then because I was like, all the teenagers need Jesus. And my mom's like, you are a teenager. I was like, I know. So just we work in youth ministry. We purposefully reach out to kids that need God's love. And so she worked in a program with teen girls that were having grade issues, and they were at risk for a lot of really bad things, drug use and the sex trade and human trafficking and all of that. And because the school was underfunded, they hired her for this program with the girls. That was kind of a trial run. But in the midst of that, they were like, well, hey, we have another thing we want to do. These 10 boys are in anger management in the school. We want to see what would happen if we do a family dinner for 10 weeks. And so she came together with DCFS and the school, and they made spaghetti every Tuesday. And they had the boys serve the families the food, and then they did things together as a family, and their grades started improving, and the boys started handling their anger better and utilizing the tools that uh that they were being given by the anger management and the DCFS people. And there was one particular story within that one that really got to me. I can see you crying, Squid.
I'm not crying. My eyes are glossy, but they're not crying. Let's keep going.
um
It's the
but
glare.
it's the glare, it's not tears. um there was one particular boy who wouldn't go home in between school and the dinner, and his mom and his mom's boyfriend would come, and they came to every meeting except the last one. His mom had decided that instead of coming to the last dinner and graduating from the program and getting all of these cool things that were celebrating the fact that they were graduating this program that they were a part of, she decided to go make some money working on the streets and got arrested. And so it was funny because this particular boy apparently connected with her a lot. And so during school hours, he was allowed, as a way to not be angry, to step out and just walk the hall. And he would end up in her office talking about what had made him angry and whatnot. And so they
Mhm.
pulled him out and they told him, hey, your mom's been arrested. Her boyfriend's coming to pick you up. We're going to need you to stay here until he gets here because he's trying to deal with stuff with your mom right now. And he didn't say anything. He just started walking away. And they were like, hey, we need you to stay here. And he just kept walking. Got to the end of the hall and turned around. And she realized he's doing what he's been trained to do. Like he's made a change. So it just, that was one of those stories where I was like, can I get that kid and just hold him and love him and tell him that God loves him and it's okay. And I'm sorry that adults were stupid to him. So That one was like a knife to the heart, Squid. Thank you.
Well, the one that I cried to was similar. Hold on, because I found it online, so I'm refreshing my memory.
Gotcha.
And it's making me want to cry again, which is also why it's the glare. One moment. So I have to remember how this ended, because I just remember like weeping through this whole one, and it was a long one. Which is one of the things in this book. Before I get to the sadness again, we'll have a little reprieve in the middle. That the ones that I expected to be really short always ended up being super long. When I would like hear a question, I'd be like, "She's going to answer this like that," and then
Yeah.
like 30 minutes later, I'm still listening to the same advice, and I'm like, "Wow, where is this coming from?"
Sometimes I would forget that what she was talking about. Like
Yeah.
she would go off on stories of her own life and like make a loop around. And so I would get so involved in the stories of her own life that I would forget until we came back around what the original question had been.
Okay. So the one that got me was How You Get Unstuck, and this was one that was about a miscarriage, and I was worried going into it. Um, and it starts with like the kind of advice you normally expect, which is like, go see a therapist. You're not alone. There are other people going through this. And then halfway through, it actually goes to the same thing where she talks about how she used to work as a youth advocate with young women
Mhm.
in a high school, and talks about all these horrible situations these girls have been through and the stuff they've had done to them or they've done and all kinds of stuff. And honestly, just like hearing the beginning part was enough. And I was already crying. And then we got to the next one, and she's like, and these are the things these young girls told me every day. And then I would go to my office and cry for a really long time. And then I would sit them down and say, here are options of things you can do. What's happening is wrong. It's illegal, but I can never tell them that it will get better or that it will stop, because
Yeah.
it won't.
That
Which
was
is also
the
like, oof.
that was the part of that I really was like, but why? Was the
Yeah,
she came in so idealistic and had that taken away from her
yeah.
because in that time frame. Now I think that things have changed some from when she would have been doing this. Hopefully.
Yeah.
I don't
And
know.
she even talks to like, has a point where she said she had talked to the state and they were like, there's just no funding for teenagers. We can help young kids, or if we're lucky, things will get bad enough and they will run away from home. And then there's more money for runaways.
Oh,
Like, what
that
a,
made me so
yeah,
angry.
what a horrible reality that is. And I was just her being like, I told them that was unacceptable and it was horrible, but hey, that's how it is, because sugarcoating that isn't going to fix anything.
Yeah.
It's not going to make it better, which she then, put back to the miscarriage part of being like, you will never stop loving this child and they
Yeah.
will never not have passed away. But here's what can happen. Here's what you
She
can do.
she gave similar advice to the guy whose son had died. And
There's
that
just a lot
was
of sadness.
yeah, Squid, you picked yet another sad book. Who is
I
surprised?
didn't mean to. I thought it was going to be funny.
I mean, it was funny, but
It was funny. It
ironic
was a very good
up and
balance.
down. Yeah. The thing about some stuff like this, like the most tragic things in life are sometimes the easiest to make funny because if you don't
Yeah.
make it funny, you're not going to survive.
It is
And
human nature
yeah,
to
that's just how a lot of people handle things. Um so it was always not always. I was looking at the word always. It was just
I
interesting to
understand.
see that perspective. Sorry about that.
Yeah, anyway, I found it really good. I really enjoyed it. My spiritual takeaway is just evaluate your advice. It's not much of a spiritual takeaway, but be
It's a
critical
good
in what
one
you
though
yeah.
because it is scriptural. I don't know I don't have the reference, but there is precedence in scripture of you have to know what people are telling you and eat the meat, spit out the bones.
Yeah.
Um,
And even like, I
I mean,
mean, even just take every thought captive.
yeah,
Evaluate what you are taking in. Like,
maybe not scriptural, but generally good practice. Because now that I'm saying that, I'm like, I don't actually know where that is in scripture. But
take every thought captive is in scripture, so I can
yes,
say that much.
yes, it is. But the whole uh, evaluate what you've been use
Yeah.
discernment with advice you've been given is not something that is necessarily in scripture. It is just kind of it's one of those things that we can pull from the things we are told in scripture, even if it's not
Right.
expressly said.
Like we are to grow in understanding and wisdom,
Right.
which means not just accepting everything at face value, because knowledge and wisdom are not the same.
No, not at all. I know many people who are very intelligent, but not very wise.
Yeah. Those go hand in hand sometimes.
Sometimes.
Oh, all right. Well, any last thoughts about this book?
I think I am good. I would say um if you enjoy this style of book, that this might be something that you are interested in, go listen to it. I would not
Yeah.
suggest listening to it though if you are someone who is easily swayed.
Yeah. Or there is some strong language. So
There is a
just,
lot of strong language, not
and
just
with
in the
any advice column, they cover everything. So,
and anything.
and anything. So, most of it's pretty tasteful. It's not like anything super, there are, again, disagreeable things, but nothing
Right.
that's, ooh, gross. It's
Yeah.
just,
Nothing that makes you go, this is not good.
yeah. Yeah. Tiny Beautiful Things by Cheryl Strayed.
So, and
Good
then
stuff.
our spiritual takeaways are just kind of sprinkled throughout.
Just a little smattering.
We will be here next month. I don't know for sure what we're reading, but there will be a thing. We will be
I don't
having.
remember either.
We'll have an episode. We don't know what it's going to be. We're both kind of fried right now, and that's okay. So, but I almost ended this incorrectly.
How dare you?
I almost ended it with Geek Devotions, not this one.
Yes. Well,
Okay, well, so long and thanks for all the fish.
bye.
Bye!
Do, 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 do.